It is only fitting that Xbox have decided to still treat us to an incredible bargain now that we're into 2026 and the Xbox sales are still filtering in. The massive Xbox Christmas sale is still ongoing but will end within the next 7 days, and remember, this does cover over 2,000 games, so there are certainly some insane deals for you to still grab. I did actually want to highlight the last 15 games today, which I highly recommend you pick up as soon as possible, as each of them are at their lowest prices yet, so you're definitely getting the best bang for your buck. Remember as well, I am actually giving away a free Xbox game every single week on these sales videos. All you have to do is just comment below and you're automatically entered. Congratulations to last week's winner. Just hit me up over on our Discord server and I'll get that game right over to you. With that though, let's dive right into the games you need to grab before this sale ends very soon. Let's be honest, the first game in this list today is ridiculously big, and that's either exactly what you're looking for or exactly what puts you off. Assassin's Creed Odyssey drops you into ancient Greece and basically says, go wherever you want. There is everything from naval combat, massive cities, islands, and even side quests that turn into some full stories. That's all alongside a pretty decent combat system that actually lets you play your own way instead of forcing you into sort of stealth mode. I like this entry solely for the amount of content, however it does drag a little from time to time with the typical Ubisoft quest tropes. The actual RPG systems though aren't actually overly complicated, but they're deep enough to stay interesting. Also, at that £8.24 price point, the sheer amount of content you're getting is borderline insane, so if you're looking for an open world that keeps you busy for months, then this is the one for you. This next one is one of those games that feels like it was made by people who genuinely love RPGs. I wanted to highlight a little indie gem called Battle Chasers Night War, and this game doesn't pad itself out necessarily, and it's actually quite incredibly well crafted. I will outright say to you though that this one is turn-based, but the combat is very rewarding. The dungeons are also handcrafted by nature, and the art style looks like a graphic novel just brought to life. What really surprised me upon picking this one up within the Christmas sale though is just how satisfying the progression feels, as every upgrade matters and every new ability changes how you play. It's a very well-paced indie gem, and you certainly never hear people shouting about this game, and honestly that's just such a shame. For £6 this is an easy win if you enjoy traditional RPGs, and for the low price it is absolutely a massive hidden gem on our Xbox consoles. I'll be quite upfront with you today. Sekiro is definitely not here to be friendly, and honestly that's why it's my favourite FromSoft game to this day. It is a beautiful, intricate and challenging experience even for the most adept Dark Souls fan. I've beaten this game over and over again on Xbox and also over on PC, and I honestly can't help but come back to it at least one time every single year. The parry system is one of, if not the best parry systems on the market. Learning each enemy's moves, being able to parry perfectly and then delving into the skill tree are some things that make this game absolutely cinematic. There is an obvious reason why this game has won Game of the Year in the past, just don't expect it to be a walk in the park, as it's one of the harder games within the series. £30 certainly isn't cheap either, but we've never seen it drop below this price point, but then again it's one of those games you remember finishing and will want to play time and time again. The Precinct was one of those that really did surprise me a little bit earlier on last year, and it massively reminds me of the likes of the old GTA games. It isn't about explosions, chaos or planning heists though, like GTA itself. Instead, it's more about the routine, escalation and decision making as a police officer. You will be patrolling the streets, responding to crimes as they happen, and then dealing with situations that can spiral depending on how you handle them. I love how reactive this game feels. No two shifts ever play out the same, and you're constantly weighing restraint versus action. The top-down view is incredibly interesting, and it works surprisingly well for this small indie-sized experience. Graphically though, it may not be that great to many of you, but then again that was never the main draw of this one, and at just under 17 quid, it's a solid choice if you want something completely different to play on your Xbox consoles. I think it is safe to say that Space Marine 2 is a must-play for Warhammer fans or just anyone looking for some intense, brutal combat. The original Space Marine was such a blast, and this sequel really did kick everything up a notch with even more action, better visual quality, and a deeper storyline. The entire game is just an incredible highlight of prowess here. The story is absolutely incredible with some gorgeous visuals, epic action, and a brutal narrative. You then have the incredible operations mode, and that also adds so many replayable missions, and also co-op is fantastic. You even then have the PvP, which is constantly being updated and is incredible to dive into from time to time if you want to take a break from that sort of PvE action. The base edition, which I am highlighting today, is down by 60%, and that is an insane discount and the best price we've seen so far for my own personal game of the year of 2024. If you're into fast-paced action and want to feel like an unstoppable space marine, then this one is the game for you. Fall of Porcupine introduces itself with the gentle charm of a cozy narrative adventure, but it quickly reveals a far more layered and emotionally charged experience beneath its hand-painted surfaces. The story of this one follows Finley, who is a newly minted doctor fresh out of training, who then arrives in the small town of Porcupine to begin his medical career at St. Ursula's Hospital. The minigames in this one are rather simple, sometimes even awkward, but that almost kind of adds to the charm of it. What really stuck with me though was the writing. It feels very honest and relatable rather than overly dramatic, and it nails exactly what it really aims for. For £3, this is a brilliant little narrative indie experience, especially if you enjoy story-driven games, considering that this one actually focuses on people instead of spectacle. This next game is basically a detective sandbox experience, and I mean that literally. Shadows of Doubt drops you into a fully simulated city where every citizen has a routine, every building can also be entered, and every case is solved your very own way. That means there's no hand-holding here as well, as you essentially have to gather your own evidence, break into apartments, follow leads, and sometimes completely mess things up. The freedom is exactly why I like this one. It feels incredibly messy at times, so unpredictable, and genuinely clever when you nail everything in place. I won't lie, there are some bugs with this one, and they can sometimes get a little bit drastic and cause the game to crash, but it has been said by the devs that many patches should still be on the way for this one. I still recommend it, as the game is really that good at just £10, and is a brilliant price if you enjoy immersive sims, emergent gameplay, and just games that trust you to figure things out on your own. Remothered Tormented Fathers is a chilling return to classic survival horror, and it relies heavily on stealth, psychological tension, and a slowly unraveling mystery. In this one though, you basically step in the role of Rosemary Reed, a woman who's investigating a young girl's disappearance, only to find herself trapped in a mansion filled with danger and dark secrets. There is no combat in this horror game though, so your survival really does hinge on hiding, running, and then thinking several steps ahead of your own pursuers. The game's mood is very oppressive and constant, and is kind of helped along by a very eerie sound design and a clever camera work, and alongside that subtle sort of environmental storytelling element. Puzzles are really designed as well to test your observation skills, and the narrative twists keep you guessing until the final moments. At its lowest price ever, at just £2.50 with 90% off, it really is a must play for anyone craving an old school horror FPS experience. Teardown though is a really interesting one, as it's a physics-based heist game where you essentially destroy pretty much everything within the environment, and it's now 50% off at just £12.50, which is its lowest price yet. The game challenges you to plan and execute complex heists by tearing down walls, blowing up structures, and using the environment to your advantage. The voxel-based destruction system is incredibly detailed as well, making every explosion and crash feel incredibly satisfying. It's such a simple idea at heart though. Here's a bunch of stuff for you to steal in a cluttered level. Once you touch the alarm box, you have 60 seconds to grab the rest and leg it back to your sketchy van before the cops show up. I know this game is not for everyone, and some may find that loop a little bit monotonous, but if you want a chilled experience that can be very fun at time to time, then this is definitely one to check out if you can. Often dubbed as the anime Dark Souls, Code Vein brings post-apocalyptic anime flair to the Souls-like formula, and it's currently down by 85% this week, and it's now just £7.50. In this one, you play as a Revenant, who's basically an undead warrior that's fueled by blood, and you'll be fighting through a ruined world filled with twisted monsters and lost memories. The combat is very challenging, but quite accessible for a Souls-like, with partner AI support and also a flexible class system called Blood Codes, which actually lets you switch playstyles on the fly. There's also a very strong emphasis on lore here, with loads of cutscenes and flashbacks to deepen your understanding of each companion and their tragedies. Deep character customization, JRPG style storytelling, and the co-op support make this such a rich and layered Souls-like experience. This is also a very good pickup this week, especially if you want to experience this franchise before number 2 arrives at the end of this January. Empire of the Ants is a truly unique experience that lets you experience strategy from ground level as you manage colonies, resources, and battles from an ant's perspective. The game is basically an RTS top-down point-and-click strategy game that was turned into a third-person game. It has more in common with stuff like Empires or the Undergrowth. I say this simply because, unfortunately, you are nothing but a commander of sorts. It is certainly slower and more deliberate than traditional RTS games, and it focuses more on positioning and survival rather than frantic micromanagement. At £17.50, it's certainly not the cheapest on this list, but if you want a strategy game that feels genuinely different and visually striking, then it's totally worth a look. I will also mention that the dev team behind this one unfortunately did disband and unfortunately go under, so don't expect any updates, but the content on offer out of the gate is really decent, especially for that price point they're asking for. I bounced off this next game the first time that I tried it, then I came back to it a few months later and suddenly it really clicked with me. Dysmantle is essentially a pseudo-incremental game about exploring, killing zombies, crafting, destroying everything for resources, and then leveling up. There's something incredibly satisfying though about slowly dismantling an entire map piece by piece. It is not a survival game though, and I do have to make you aware of that, as it's kind of weird that it's being marketed as one. There's no survival mechanics here, and if you die you simply just start again at a sort of Dark Souls inspired campfire, and also the mobs reset, so it's pretty straightforward. Combat is also rather simple and the progression feels steady without being too overwhelming, but I don't actually think it's to its detriment at all. What I really enjoy though is just how chill it feels despite being a survival game in its heart. It never rushes you, and that's simply why it's so great. For just under £6, this is a great pick if you like methodical progression, crafting, and just watching a world physically change because of your own actions. QUBE 2 is a first-person puzzle game in the same sort of vein of Portal, in which you basically bestow various properties upon white tiles in order to solve logic and physics-based puzzle rooms. The game overall is very well paced, with the puzzles being challenging without becoming so frustrating, and the game actually introduces some new concepts regularly enough to keep things pretty fresh. You're also then going to be manipulating blocks, space, and physics to solve increasingly clever challenges, and I like how each mechanic builds naturally onto the last. There's a light narrative running throughout it though, but it's not actually the main focus, but the puzzles here are always the focus at the heart, and that's why it's so addictive. If you enjoy Portal-style puzzle design and want something that respects your intelligence without being too frustrating, I honestly just can't recommend it enough, especially for just under that £5 price tag for this week. Ravenswatch didn't actually launch too long ago now, and it's a top-down roguelike action game from the developers of Curse of the Dead Gods, and it actually blends fast-paced combat with a dark fairy tale setting. You'll be choosing from a cast of reimagined storybook heroes, like a twisted version of the Pied Piper, or even a corrupted Red Riding Hood, and then you'll be fighting your way through procedurally generated maps filled with dangerous enemies and challenging boss fights. What really makes this one stand out though is its tight gameplay loop, with each run offering new abilities, builds, and even upgrades. It also supports up to 4-player co-op, and teamwork becomes really crucial during those higher difficulty waves. The game is still evolving to this day with regular updates and improvements, making it such a great choice if you enjoy replayable combat-driven roguelikes. It is down at the moment to £10.50, and it's a solid investment for fans of this genre. One of my favourite deck building games of all time is Roguebook, and when I saw it was down by 90% off for this week, I could not skip this deal and I just had to make you aware of it. If you're unfamiliar with this, Roguebook is a compelling mix of strategy, deck building, and exploration, and it kind of delivers surprising depth in every run. You will command a team of 2 different heroes whose cards, positionings, and abilities must be combined in some creative ways to essentially overcome some increasingly difficult foes. The map itself is also revealed by using ink to pave new paths, encouraging strategic planning both in and out of combat, which is rather satisfying. There's loads of cards here, I believe about 100 or so, alongside loads of relics and combinations, so no 2 runs will ever be the same here. Again, this one is now available in the sale for just £1.67, so there's really no excuse not to take the plunge on this game, as it's less than the price of a cup of coffee. What games have you managed to pick up over this holiday period? Are there any that you actually got for Christmas? Are there any that you're looking to pick up? Or was there anything that you actually purchased within this sale? I would be keen to hear what you've been picking up in the comments below. Whilst down there as well, do smash that like button if you enjoy sales videos like this and want to see more, and do subscribe as well, as I will be uploading Xbox content on a daily basis for 2026. Whilst here though, and if you want to check out some more amazing Xbox content here on our channel, why don't you check out the video on screen now? I actually covered the top 15 games which are coming to both Xbox and Xbox Game Pass in the first half of 2026, and there's some huge games here you definitely won't want to miss.